Hi, I'm Neil. I'm now retired and I've lived out here in this house in Suffolk for the last 30 years. It's a 450-year-old house, so there's only so much that you can do. It's not listed, thankfully, but putting insulation into the spaces in the wall, improving the lining of it, in some areas rebuilding and putting full modern insulation into the extension part of the property. So I've done a good deal, or as much as I could already, to improve the insulation values of it. And then of course the major thing 2.5 years ago was switching to the air source heat pump. So the thing that inspired me to go with an air source heat pump was really twofold. Part of it was wanting to reduce the running costs. So previously, like everyone around here, just about had an oil-fired boiler. That boiler was 20 odd years old and it was going to need replacing along with the tank as well for safety reasons within the next 3 to 4 years. So I wanted a new heating system that was going to be efficient, that was going to save money, but importantly, it was also going to be quieter, that was going to have a lower environmental impact and cut the CO2 emissions from the property. The way I went about researching the market and looking at getting installed, bearing in mind this was about 3 years ago, so there were fewer options and fewer qualified installers around at that time. So what I did first of all was to do a little bit of research and try and understand a bit about air source heat pumps. And then I did what I'd advise anyone else to do, which is go around and talk to some local installers. In my case, I invited 3 to come in. 2 of those in particular I found to be very helpful, and the one that I eventually went with, which was Greenscape Energy, provided me with some really good advice before the sale about the energy that was required in different parts of the room. We took measurements and so on. And that really enabled me to make a sensible choice, both in terms of the capacity and type of system, but also, how much to spend and what the likely payback was going to be from that. So I got all the information. I then built a simple business case, if you like, to look at the projected payback and the impact of it. And I'm happy to say that's, largely worked out in practice. The process of actually installing and commissioning the heat pump was really remarkably straightforward. Obviously I had to get the original oil system removed, the boiler and the tank had to be taken away safely and disposed of, and then we had to get the air source heat pump itself installed, and along with that a new hot water system, considerably uprated, and also change a couple of the radiators as well. But the whole thing, half a day to get the oil system out, and within 2 days the whole of the air source system was installed and up and running. So now the work's been done and I've been living with this air source heat pump for about 2.5 years. I can say that it's a different experience to a conventional gas or an oil boiler, both of which I've had before. I find it's better, and the reasons are actually at least twofold. One is that a conventional boiler is kind of on or off. Yes, you'll get hot radiators from it, but typically you're not going to leave it running 24/7, and when it knocks off, then it can feel really quite cold, so you're having to ramp up the heat and it has to work pretty hard. And certainly my experience of the oil system was that when it was doing that, it was noisy. There's a lot of banging from the pipe work, and the oil boiler would fire up early in the morning and make a racket. But also it was pumping fumes outside the house here into the public footpath that runs directly past me. So all of that's gone. The heat pump, I know people say they can be noisy. That's not been my experience. There's really almost no sound at all within the house. Even if I go and stand out next to it in the garden, then it's around about the same as a domestic fridge. So this particular heat pump is very, very quiet in operation. I tend to use it in a slightly different way. So rather than having it off and then coming on and trying to ramp up to temperature, I keep this set at a relatively low background temperature, and then in the evenings, or if I've got people coming round and I want to heat the house up, I'll just let it gradually come up a couple of degrees more. You have to get used to using it differently. So the house is no longer really cold at any time, and then I just ramp up the heat gradually to the target temperature that I want for the evening. So that works very well.